Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, grab a pew if you can find one. When I saw the Justice League theatrical cut in the cinema, I turned to my girlfriend and I said, Kevin Sugihara is going to get the sack. So days went past and my girlfriend was saying, well, he hasn't got the sack yet. You were wrong. I said, no, he will get the sack within a year, maybe 2 years. He will get the sack, but they will find another reason to remove him. He wasn't removed because of the reason they stated they removed him. He was removed because he messed up the DCEU by his stunted, dumb decisions. And that's why he's not in a job. In fact, from the moment people saw the Justice League film and reacted to it, he was already neutralised. He told one of the press guys that he wasn't going to involve himself in the day-to-day running of the DCEU any longer. That's because the decisions had been taken away from him. So slowly, you knew he wasn't running this show anymore. Now, about 2 weeks before he was fired, he did a big interview about, talking about what the DCEU would be, that they'd focus on each character and each movie and it would be less shared. He was just following what he was told to say. He no longer had control of the franchise because he made too many mistakes. He interfered with Suicide Squad. He interfered with Batman vs Superman. And then he interfered on a greater level to Justice League, which resulted on Zack Snyder losing his job. I remember seeing the theatrical cut of Justice League and just thinking, this is just a calamity. I was so underwhelmed, so heartbroken, and I couldn't believe what had happened. All those beautiful trailers we were shown, this looked like it was going to be an epic movie. Half those trailers, though, was Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's the truth of the situation. Half the scenes we saw weren't even used in a theatrical cut. So I slowly heard rumblings of this Snyder cut. And it was really difficult to comprehend at the time because I was heartbroken. And I just didn't believe in the franchise anymore. I just thought, if we currently carry on with this situation, I don't know what's going to happen. I wasn't particularly interested in Aquaman or Shazam or the future. I was just too hurt. It's like when you get dumped by your girlfriend. You're not interested in relationships straight away, are you? I mean, I was in love with this franchise. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was such a good film. You thought, right, now we're going to get really kind of films that everybody likes. But it never really happened. I thought we might get a happy medium between what Snyder fans want, die-hard DCU fans want, the die-hard DC fans want. But again, it never happened because Justice League was a calamity. Now, yesterday I spoke about this sea change. People that I've argued with before about Zack Snyder, people who didn't particularly like Zack Snyder, but now people who are admitting there is a Snyder cut, that Zack Snyder was badly treated, and actually Batman v Superman is a really good film. Batman v Superman is a really good film. And if Warner Brothers got their marketing right and were more honest about the kind of movie it was going to be, and just like what I've said before about Logan, if with the Logan marketing you knew this was a different type of movie, a more indie type of movie, and that's what Batman v Superman was. But instead Warner Brothers sold Batman v Superman as this blockbuster, which it never was. It was something extremely unique. Now, we can sit here and discuss the right and the wrongs of doing this film and doing this film that way, but that's what it was. And it's in its own right, it was a really good film. But the decision had already been made by the mainstream and by critics and by bloggers that Batman v Superman was a terrible movie. And that was not true. Whether you like what they did with the film, it doesn't make it a bad film. So all of a sudden, we've got this sea change. It's looking like we're going to get the Snyder Cut. People are now, even people who are not invested in the DCEU or in DC, are talking about this cut of this movie. I think the importance of the Snyder Cut is that it would give us a good version of Justice League. A 3-hour version, right? And the timing's very interesting, isn't it? Because we're about to get a 3-hour MCU movie, which is the concluding part of this first chapter of MCU films. That's very interesting, where Disney, a company that like to control the narrative, have allowed Kevin Feige to do his thing. That's the difference, because they trust him, because his way has put butts in seats. That's why he's trusted. It's not about him. It's about the results of what he does. And the results of what he's done have made the MCU the most successful IP ever. And really, that's what Warner Brothers wanted. But you can't have a successful IP when you've got 3 or 4 cooks spoiling the broth. Jeff Johns had one idea how the DCEU should be executed. Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer had another idea. And then you've got Zack Snyder, who's a very unique type of filmmaker. And this is the thing, and this is where it all went wrong. Where now you've got Walter Hamada and then you've got Peter Safran underneath him. Each person knows their job. Walter Hamada is the leader here. So why do I think that Warner Brothers now have decided that the Snyder Cut should be released? Well, I believe they know now that what was done to Zack Snyder was wrong, and what Sugihara did was an abomination. And I'm not just talking about the Justice League movie. His decisions were ridiculous. And anyone who's worked in a studio, who runs a studio, shouldn't be making these decisions to allow Justice League to be released in that state, when you had a great version of Justice League, a really ambitious version of Justice League, and you literally put the brakes on it. You sack the director, because that's what they did, whether they cared to admit it or not. That's what they did. And this is where it went wrong. So this is a great opportunity for Zack Snyder, because if people like the Snyder Cut, there'd be more of a support for Snyder to make more DCEU movies. Now, Zack Snyder will never return as the leader of the DCEU. It's Walter Hamada's baby now. That's right, that's correct. He's going in the correct direction. I love his ideas. I like the Black Label. I love Shazam. I love Aquaman. We are now going on a good path. But if you want everyone on board, you can't be doing what they did to Zack Snyder. It's a situation that must be corrected. The past is the past. We can't go back and correct that. But what we can do is allow Zack to put his film together, get the VFX right, get Junkie XL back to do his epic music, and we've got something special in our hands. And I really believe that this is a film where the narrative isn't very different to the theatrical cut, but the execution is really different. Now, apparently, the climax of the film would have been very similar, with Cyborg and Superman trying to kind of do their thing with the mother boxes, but what happens is that kind of kills them. So what the Flash does, he goes in a time tunnel, he gets into the multiverse, whatever the Flash does, and he finds a way to bring them back. Very different, very awesome, and it expands on that third act, and it makes it better. Already, all the things I've heard. But to have Darkseid in a Justice League movie is awesome. Now, nobody's saying that Darkseid's going to be front and centre in the Snyder Cut, but he's going to be there, and his appearance and Apocalypse and Steppenwolf will be explained better. If you don't read DC Comics, you don't know who Steppenwolf is, you don't know who Darkseid is. Nobody knew what the heck was going on in that movie. But I'm sure Snyder's version will have explanations. We're going to get to see Apocalypse. It's awesome. And hey, who knows? We could actually get a Justice League 2 continuing on from what Zack did. Who knows? Anything is possible if people like it. It's an opportunity for people to say, you know what? Zack Snyder is a great filmmaker. These movies are brilliant. And I think I liked what the guys on Collider said the other day, when they said, actually, watching Shazam and watching Aquaman makes me appreciate Batman v Superman and Man of Steel all the more. That says a lot, because there's a lot more expansion in those movies. There's a lot more depth. Now, I love Aquaman and I love Shazam, but it's interesting, isn't it? Why does the phone always ring when I'm doing these videos? Anyway, we're going to carry on. Luckily, someone picked it up, because I wasn't going to. Now, right, I've broken my mode of thinking now. So, yeah. So you can have a franchise, right? You have got a franchise with films like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, then Shazam and Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad. This is a variable franchise, and that's what makes it, for me, better than the MCU. The MCU can boast big box office, but someone made a great point. You know, the MCU is literally just a TV series, and it is. That's what it is, and it works for them. Well done. I'm happy for them. But if you examine the MCU movies, there's not much to examine. But if you examine, right, the DCEU movies, there's something really, really special. And there's so much to pick apart, if you like. Not to destroy the movies that have been made, but just to look at and discuss. What is it? What's that YouTube channel, the DCEU podcast or whatever it is? They sit there and analysing the whole of the DCEU, each film. There's so much there. But if you were going to do that with the MCU, you'd be done within 10 minutes. There is nothing there. I mean, apart from Captain America the Winter Soldier, right? And even maybe Captain America Civil War, there's a bit to pick apart there, right? But really, with the DCEU, there is so much depth. There's levels upon levels, and that's, for me, what makes it a better franchise. Now, I want to change the subject a little bit. I want to talk about Superman, because I have been writing a Superman script. No one's told me to. I'm not working for anyone. I do want to turn it into Warner Brothers, and I've spoken to you about this before. Superman's very different to other characters because everybody has different ideas what Superman should be on the big screen. Some people like the Dick Donner version and think that should be repeated. If it wasn't for the Dick Donner version, I wouldn't be a Superman fan, but it doesn't mean I want to repeat that again. I love Man of Steel, but I don't want to repeat that again. For example, I love the costume that Zack Snyder designed, but I think there's so many versions of the Superman costume in the comics. Why not use one of them? My script has a flashback where we see Superman in the original Action Comics costume. Never been done before. Why? Why hasn't that ever been respected before and shown? And then I would have him wearing all the different versions, maybe in the opening sequences. Because in my script, Superman's been around for thousands of years. So he's got this knowledge of the Earth, and he's got these past adventures to look back on. That's my idea, but someone might say, do you know what, Mick, that's a crap idea. And this is my idea. Everyone has different ideas. I think we all agree that Superman is a pure-hearted, naive hero, and that's great. But just because he's nice and he's good, it doesn't mean he has to be boring. One thing Superman needs is a personality. Now, I'm not saying he's Tony Stark. I'm saying he needs something more to interest mainstream audiences. We think he's cool because we already know him and love him. But we need to give mainstream audiences the opportunity to like this character. In terms of Lois Lane, it's very easy to make her a bitch. And I think some comic book writers have done that. For me, she's a compassionate, caring, intelligent, interesting woman. And do her right, she's a character upon herself. She's not just an extension of Superman. She's not just his girlfriend. I've spoken about Jimmy Olsen being like the companion in Doctor Who. He's like you and me. He's our way into the story. So he's definitely in my script. Superman is a very complicated character to get right. But if you do get him right, the potential is limitless.